VeloVoices. Many voices, one passion. Pro cycling for fans by fans.
Hello and welcome to podcast number 8 for VeloVoices. We are tickled pink to bring you our Giro preview. And we're also glad that Tim is back and recovered from his sickness. So welcome back, Tim. Kathy and I did it alone without you, but it wasn't nearly as fun.
Wasn't the same. Yeah.
And a very fine job you did too.
All right. Well, obviously, in a couple of days is the Giro, and usually we do these podcasts, every Sunday night, every 2 weeks. But because the Giro starts this Saturday, we wanted to make sure that we got our Giro preview out to everybody to listen to tomorrow, which is Friday. So you'll be able to listen to it day before, or Thursday, excuse me. So you'll be able to listen to it 2 days before the Giro starts. But before we get into previewing the Giro, we are going to talk about the Tour of Turkey and the Tour of Romandy, which just happened, because those were great races. And then, of course, we'll jump into our Giro preview. And, of course, we'll end with our traditional sprint finish. So, Tim, since you might be a little rusty, but I'm just going to throw this right to you to talk about both the Tour of Turkey, and then you can just go right into Romandy.
Okay. So the tour. Let's start with the Tour of Turkey then. It's not a World Tour race yet, but it's becoming increasingly well supported by the top teams. It offers a combination of beautiful scenery, plenty of action for the sprinters, and some genuinely tough climbs. So we had 6 of the 8 stages finished in sprints, with the Germans getting their towels down ahead of everyone else on a fairly consistent basis. Andre Greipel won twice, but it was the Argonauts who had the most impressive lead-out train, launching Marcel Kittel to a hat-trick of victories.
It's been great to see all the photos they've been posting to Instagram of their victories.
Oh, they've been brilliant, haven't they?
Yeah.
So we had Orica Green Edge's Idis Kruopis took the other sprint on stage 2, which was notable for a huge high-speed crash near the end that left a lot of the riders on the deck, and Mark Renshaw nursing a broken collarbone and a missing tooth, which is the last thing he needs.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest crashes I've ever seen. It was huge. I mean, it happened like he was like third wheel when he touched wheels and took down the whole field.
Yeah, it looked like he touched wheels with Teo Boss, didn't he? And as you say, it happened right at the front of the peloton, and it just brought everyone to a grinding halt.
Yeah.
So, it was a nasty one, and probably it was fortunate that there weren't more injuries than there were. But that was the sprints. The GC action really was focused on stage 3 and stage 6. On the first of those, Eritrea's Nathanael Berhane from Europcar put in a super aggressive ride to outsprint a small group at the summit, and that was enough to put him into the overall lead. And then Turkey's Mustafa Sayar was third on that particular stage, but he then went on to win the lumpy stage 6. That was enough for him to displace Berhane as overall leader, and he comfortably defended that to the end. So Berhane was second overall, and Cofidis put 2 riders in the top 5, with Johan Bagot third overall. So that was the Tour of Turkey.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how many pro teams go after Mustafa Sayar after his performance. That was a great performance. What a dream ride for that guy, seriously. All right, so what about the Romandy, Tim?
Yeah, so the Tour de Romandy. Sky's Chris Froome took the leader's yellow jersey on the opening uphill prologue, and to be honest, he never really looked like relinquishing it. He took victory over former winner Simon Spilak from Katusha, and Movistar's Rui Costa was third. So I guess it was no surprise that we had an Omega Pharma Quick-Step rider claiming 2 wins on the flattish stages over the 3 days following the prologue. But the one surprise was really that it wasn't Mark Cavendish, who, to be fair, was using the race more to ride himself into form for the Giro than actually looking for wins. So instead of Cav, it was Gianni Meersman, who really underlined the depth of talent that OPQS have. He won either side of Garmin Sharp's Ramunas Navadauskas. I've been practicing that all day. Slightly surprising victory, which he took on stage 2. Speaking of Cap, he was one of a number of riders, along with rider Hejdahl, I think, who subsequently abandoned ahead of a snow-affected Queen Stage 4, which ended up with an unscheduled uphill finish. Sky couldn't quite control all the attacks on that last climb, and when Spilak attacked off the front, Chris Froome just put the hammer down. He rode across to him solo. The pair worked together very effectively to pull out an advantage of about a minute on the chasing pack. Froome didn't contest the finish. Spilak won the stage, but Froome knew he'd already done enough to establish the cushion he needed ahead of the closing time trial. And in that final time trial, he duly finished a strong third around Lake Geneva behind Lampre's Adriano Malori, who won the stage, and world champion Tony Martin. So Froome won overall by 54 seconds, and that was really as comfortable and dominating a win as you could possibly have. Really, his Sky team were as powerful as ever, but really it was the acceleration to drop his rivals and then bridge across to Spilak on the big climb on stage 4 that showed a combination of, I think, very impressive power and really no small amount of panache, which isn't something that Sky are often accused of having.
Right. Well, that really lights up kind of this interesting discussion between Wiggins and Froome about who's going to be the tour leader, doesn't it, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the final thought really about Romandie is that the last two winners of that race have also gone on to win the Tour de France that year. So Cadel Evans in 2011 and obviously Bradley Wiggins last year. Now, I'm not going to say now that that winning Romandie means that Froome will win in July, but it certainly underlines his credentials. And I think the fact that it prompted those comments from Wiggins that I think we've all read about Sky, about who is the real team leader for Sky for the Tour, and I think that's an indication of just how much Froome is continuing to impress his rivals as well.
Yeah. Well, this week on Twitter, I gave I asked Twitter followers what would a good animal nickname be for Wiggins, and I got a big list back, and one of them was the Peacock. So it sounds like Chris Froome will be slaying the Peacock in July. All right. Let's now get into our Giro preview, and I want to just put a caveat out there before we jump into this. Tim is the only one of us who really has any knowledge of the Italian language.
And even then, not much.
And so I'm asking for pre-forgiveness for all the mispronunciations we are about to make when it comes to Italian. And we'll have a little contest, and you guys can let us know after you listen about who mispronounces the most words.
Yep.
And it'll probably be a contest between Kitty and I, but we'll see. So on Saturday, the Giro d'Italia starts, and we love the Giro. And we thought we'd just start out by talking a little bit about why we love this race so much, why we love this Grand Tour. So, Kathy, why don't we start with you? Tell us why you love the Giro.
The Giro is my favourite Grand Tour, actually, and it's really quite simple. I just think it's the most elegant and beautiful of the Grand Tours. In the parcours, in the way that they organise it, all the pink along the roadside, and it's beautiful countryside, and it just, I don't know, it's just beautiful and elegant.
Yeah, it really is. I love the pink everywhere too, and I love the Tifosi. The Italian fans are some of the things that really make this race so great. You can tell how passionate they are about cycling, and all of Italy comes out to watch the race, and you can almost feel it through your computer or your television when you're watching it, how much they love this Grand Tour. The other reason I love this race is because of the varied parcours. It's always challenging. There's never a year where guys are like, oh, that was an easy Giro, right? They're always like, oh my gosh, that was killer. And this is where the hard men come to win. And there's always surprises. This is a race of surprises. And obviously we can recall 1988 where Andy Hampsten went over the Gavia in a snowstorm with Eric Breukink, and Breukink won the stage, but Hampsten went on to win the Giro, and that was really the first time a non-European had ever won it. And so that for me, that's the first time I really fell in love with the race. And then even things like Stage 7 in 2010, where Cadel Evans and Vino were battling in the muddiest conditions in Tuscany.
That's my favorite stage.
Right, over the same roads of Strade Bianche, right? I mean, these are the types of stages that the Giro consistently produces year after year for us to watch. There's always some stage where you are just knuckles white and you're just glued to the TV. So that's why I love the Giro. Tim, why do you love the Giro?
Right, so let me see. You've between the two of you, you've managed beautiful, elegant, and challenging. So I need to come up with a completely different set of adjectives. Excellent. I knew it was a good idea going last. I think I'm very much in the same boat as Kathy. I mean, I make no bones about it, really. I love all three Grand Tours for different reasons, but the Giro is my favourite. And I think you guys have covered a lot of it already. Each of the Grand Tours does have a very different and specific vibe to it. The Tour is all about tradition and gravitas. The Vuelta, particularly in recent years, is brutality personified. But I do like the Vuelta in particular because it provides a platform. It often provides a platform for new stars to emerge. But for me, the Giro is all about the passion, and it's also, I think, the most innovative of the Grand Tours. So I think that's the thing I like most about the Giro, is that RCS, they're not afraid to throw in interesting new wrinkles. We've seen shorter road stages, we've seen lots of new climbs, we've seen lots of little novelties that really capture the imagination, and they leave iconic images seared into our memories. You've already mentioned that stage in 2010 to Montalcino. The year before that, we had the closing time trial that finished on the cobbles outside the Colosseum.
Right.
How that Menshov went and did a Menshov on.
He did, and we all remember him falling over pretty much within sight of the line.
Yeah.
And those are images that kind of live with you year after year. And this year is just as interesting, I think. We get the Galibier, we get a trio of killer climbing stages to finish, and we'll come on to that a little bit later in the preview.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many images seared in your mind from the Giro. Everything from, Menshov going down in the final seconds of a time trial to just even the jets flying over with the Italian tricolor, and watching the racers race under that. So it's a beautiful race, and it is elegant. I think, Kathy, that's a great way to state it. Okay, well, let's talk about this year's parcours then, Tim. I mean, this is challenging. The last stages of this race are killer. So why don't we start with stage 1, and you can walk us through it, and then we'll just go one after the other and talk about the different stages.
Okay, so stage 1 starts and finishes in Naples. Essentially, there's just 4 small speed bumps early on, and then it's flat, flat, flat with an inevitable bunch sprint, which will decide who gets to wear the first Maglia Rosa. So you can be sure that the sprinters will be out in force, desperate to get their hands on the pink jersey. Yeah.
Stage 2 is Isola. Oh, here we go. This is the start of the mispronunciations. Isola d'Isca, which is the short team time trial. It's on a small island. The wind might play a part. It's undulating parkour on possibly not the best roads ever, but it'll just be seconds between the top teams.
Yeah, and then we get into stage 3, which is from Sorrento to Marina di Assia. It's 220 kilometers, and it goes down that gorgeous Amalfi coast that we all want to go visit one day. And what's interesting about this stage is it has 2 categorized little bumps at the end, which could make for guys trying to attack at the end. And it's kind of technical. It's very technical on the last descent, and then with 400 meters to go, there's a really sharp left-hander. So it should be interesting to see if the sprinters make it over that to contest for the win. How about stage 4, Tim?
Okay, stage 4 starts in Policastro Busentino and finishes in Serra San Bruno. It's the longest stage of this year's Giro, 244 kilometres, and really this one's all about the sting in the tail. There's a second category climb that summits about 7 kilometres from the finish. So I think we can expect a small group of punchers and classics riders to battle it out to the finish, with the GC contenders keeping close attention to make sure there's no time gaps.
Stage 5 is from Cosenza to Matera, So that's 2 words I've mispronounced. Mainly it's a flat stage. There's a small climb into Matera. So the sprinters will have to be in particularly good form to be in the running for the win.
Yeah, and stage 6 follows along those same lines. It's just a mostly flat stage. But there are some narrow and slightly beat up roads. It's not technical, and it'll be for the sprinters for sure. It's from Mola di Bari to Margherita di Savoia. We'll see if I pronounced that all right. So, Tim, how about stage 7?
Stage 7 from San Salvo to Pescara. I think the technical term for this is that it's as lumpy as anything. There's 4 small classified climbs towards the end of the stage, so I think you can be pretty sure that we will see a big breakaway. We'll see lots of attacks flying all over the place over those last 4 hills. We'll see lots of very nervous riders afraid of getting caught out, and what that probably adds up to is a crash or 2.
Stage 8 is Gabicimer to Saltara, and this is an individual time trial which looks pretty straightforward on paper, but it's not. It's got constant up and downs for the first half of the race, or first half of the stage, and then technical bends. There's gradients that can bite. Then 12 kilometers of flat before the final climb to the finish, and the last 400 kilometers will test the resolve with its maximum gradient of 13%.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And then right after that, we go into stage 9, which is basically starts our mountain climbing in the Alps. So this is from San Sepolcro to Forenza, or Florence as we know it. It has 2 major categories climbs in it, the Passo della Casuma and the Volo Broza. And I think this is one for the stage hunters. It's lumpy, and then at the very end there's 2 small climbs, and then it's a fast descent into the finish. So this is the one that we could again see stage hunters try to attack. And then we have a rest day, right, Tim? Our first rest day. I'm always depressed during the rest day because I don't know why. It's just you look forward to racing, and it's like you guys can't rest. But then we go into stage 10.
Yeah, stage 10. So stage 10 we have the first proper summit finish. Starting in Cordenon and finishing at Altopiano del Montasio. We've got 2 first category climbs with the finish at the top of the Altopiano. This is a serious climbing test for the GC contenders, and it's where we might just see 1 or 2 people getting caught out and losing a minute or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 11 is from Tarvisio to Vejant, and that's actually the Vejant ending is in tribute to the dam breaking, and there's lots of loss of life. So that's going to be quite an emotional stage, I think. It's one big mid-stage climb that would probably favor a strong breakaway because the GC boys are probably just going to want a rest from yesterday. And there's a little uphill finish which will favor a punchy climber.
Yeah, and then they go to stage 12, which is from Longarone to Treviso. I'm trying to score points here. Longarone.
Let's mispronounce with Panache.
But it's a very short stage. It's 134 kilometers, and it's mostly downhill, actually. But with about 35K to go, there's a little lump called the Santa Maria della Vittoria. And I think we could see some attacks on that with the guys trying to get away for solo wins to the finish.
Oh dear, we're never going to get that contract to do those Learn Italian audiobooks, are we?
No.
Right, stage 13, unlucky for some. Mark Cavendish talks about there being 6 or 7 probable sprints and a couple of possible sprints. This is one of the possible sprints. So it's not definite. It's flat enough to entice the sprinters, but it's also lumpy enough, particularly in the final 50 kilometres or so, to make life difficult for them. So this could be an interesting balance between the sprinters, the breakaway guys, and the stage hunters.
Stage 14 is Cervere. That's probably wrong. I can't even say it now. Bardaccia. This is the first alpine stage, and it's short and very hard because Sestriere comes 125 kilometers into the stage. Then there's a climb to a summit finish of Jaffaro, and that final part of that climb is on gravel roads. So there's the little twists in these stages.
Interesting. All right, well, stage 15 is one that I'm really looking forward to because it has a summit finish on the Col du Galibier. It starts, let's see if I can pronounce this, Cesana Torinese to Col du Galibier. And it's 149 kilometers long, and it has two major climbs, and both of the climbs are in excess of 25 kilometers. And of course, we finish on the Col du Galibier after going over the Telegraph. So this is epic mountains, and this will be a decisive stage. We're definitely going to see some time gaps here, I think. And then we have yet another rest day before it's stage 16.
Yeah, so stage 16 from Valois to Ivrea. There's a big climb early on, which will send the sprinters scrambling back into the Gruppetto. And then there's a tricky little third category climb about 20 kilometres from the end. Following on from the rest day, and with 3 big mountain stages to come, this one might just have breakaway written all over it.
And stage 17 is from Caravaggio, and I do know how to pronounce that, to Vicenza. And that's flat for the majority of the stage until it kicks up about 20 kilometers from the finish, which will make it difficult for the pure sprinters. But it looks like it's a sprint stage.
Yeah, and then right after that we go to a mountain time trial in stage 18 from Mori to Polsa. It's only 20 kilometers long, and it's basically 19 kilometers of it are entirely uphill with an average gradient of 6 to 8%. And so I think this is going to really favor guys who are used to looking at their power meter because that's the kind of consistent climb this is. There's a little gap in the middle where the time check is, so it'll be interesting to see where the big contenders fall halfway through the stage. So that takes us to 19, Tim.
Yeah, stage 19 from Ponte di Legno to Val Martello. This is the first leg of a punishing double-header that will decide the GC. There's 4,300 metres of climbing in a stage that's just 139 kilometres long. So we've got the Passo Gavia and the Stelvio, which are just the warm-up act for a 2,000 metre plus summit finish. It's just ouch. Just ouch.
Yeah, with all the snow this year, who knows what will happen on those mountains.
Right, after they finish that, then they go to stage 20 from Salandro to, this is going to be ugly, Tre Cima de Lavaredo. That was so wrong. This stage has 5 climbs. It's including the unforgiving, I'm going to say this wrong, Gaia, and the final summit finish on that thing I can't pronounce, with 18% gradients and an average in the last 4 kilometers of 12%. So after they get through 4 climbs, they are still going to have to work like dogs to win this stage and not lose loads of time if they're about ready to blow.
Yeah, that's going to be epic. All right, and then we finish with stage 21 from Riza to Brescia. Riza is the birthplace of Pope Pius X. Anyway, it'll be that kind of flat ceremonial stage. We'll know who the winner of the Giro is at this point, and it'll be great to see him ride into Brescia in pink, and we'll have a big celebration. So that is the parcours, and we have just butchered.
We have slaughtered that language.
Butchered the Italian language. All right, so Tim, oh man, I can't wait to hear the feedback that we get. So, Tim, of all the stages, which one are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, there's so many, aren't there?
Yeah.
I think it was really genuinely very difficult to pick one, but I am going to go with stage 19, which is the stage from Ponte di Legno to Val Martello. So, never mind the almost as brutal stage 20 that follows it, but after the mountain time trial the previous day, this might just be the straw that finally breaks the back of a lot of the contenders.
Yeah.
So let's break this down in a little bit of detail. As I said earlier, 3 peaks over 2,000 metres, 2 of them, the Gavia and the Stelvio, truly iconic, and then as well a brand new summit finish just to whet the appetite. So first up we have the aperitif of the Passo Gavia, which tops out at a mere 2,618 metres. It's 16.5k long. It features over 1,300 metres of climbing from bottom to top at an average gradient of 8%. Steepest sections are around 16, and they're just before the midway point, so we could see some attacks happening actually relatively early on that climb, should anyone want to get away. But it's not just the gradient that will sap the legs, of course, but it's the constant deceleration and acceleration through the multiple switchbacks on the way up. Next, the main course, weather permitting, the Passo dello Stelvio will be raced for the 11th time in the Giro's history. It's an eye-watering 2,758 metres in the air. The gradient's not as steep as the Gavia; it's just a trifle really at 6.9, but it's much longer. It's 21.7k long, and it features 60, count them, 60 hairpin turns. So the Stelvio, just to pass on a little bit of history about the Stelvio, because this fascinated me. It's the second highest paved mountain pass in the Alps. The first road was built there as far back as the 1820s, and it's been paved since 1938. The Giro first climbed it in 1953. Some guy named Fausto Coppi attacked to win the stage and ultimately the entire race. And more recently, it also featured as a summit finish last year, and I think we all remember Thomas de Gent's solo attack, which helped to propel him to third overall in Milan. And anyone who's ever watched the British motoring show Top Gear might also remember that the Stelvio was named as the greatest driving road in the world a few years back. Now, I don't know. I don't know whether it is the greatest driving road in the world, but it's certainly one of the greatest cycling climbs in the world.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to see beautiful pictures of the Stelvio, just look up Jared Gruber. I mean, he's shot that iconic place like nobody else. So it's awesome. Well, that's going to be an awesome stage.
Oh, hang on, I haven't finished yet.
Well, please.
Now, of course, we're not finished after the Stelvio. Dear, oh dear, no. No, like the Gavia, the Stelvio's got a long, fast technical descent, which it might just tempt someone, a skilled descender like Nibali or maybe even Sammy Sanchez to at least apply a little bit of pressure to try and thin out the peloton, maybe shake off some of the Sky Boys ahead of the final climb. So the final climb is Val Martello, which, as I said earlier, is it's making its Giro debut, and it's therefore something of an unknown quantity. Like the Stelvio, it's not particularly steep. It's 6.4%, but it's over 22 kilometres long. And although it's the least tall of the three peaks, it's 2,059 metres, it still features over 1,400 metres of climbing, so that's actually more than the Gavia. Wow. It starts relatively gently, and then it gradually ramps up, and there's a false flat about 3 or 4k from the finish, and then that leads into the steepest part of the climb. So you've got sections at 14k, and the road flicks constantly backwards and forwards up to the summit. So if you look at it in isolation, Val Martello is quite some way from being the toughest climb in the Giro's armoury, but it is a big chance for the climbers to recover any deficits. So, do expect some big attacks. And the thing to bear in mind is that it's coming off the back of the Gavia and the Stelvio. So this is going to be the kind of it's going to be a sadistic, leave nothing behind kind of day for the GC men. And as for the Gruppetto, well, good luck to them.
Yeah, we'll see if the Gruppetto makes it the time cut on a stage like that. Well, I'm looking forward. Tim, I got to admit, I didn't do my homework like you did on the stage that I'm looking forward to. But I am looking forward to stage 20, which is following this brutal thing that you just described. They're calling it the Queen Stage, and it's the third consecutive day of mountain climbing for these guys. There's 4 massive climbs in it, including the Passo de Gal. There's 2 Category 2s followed by 2 Category 1s with a summit finish on, and I'm going to butcher this, Trecima di Lavaredo.
That sounded better than how I pronounced it, I've got to say.
And what's really interesting, after doing stage 19 and then having to do these 3 huge climbs, this summit finish has the last, Kathy, you mentioned this, has the last 4 kilometers never dipped down below 10% grade. So I think this is where, if we don't see huge time gaps on stage 19, this is where the GC guys will have to lay out all their cards. This is where it will happen. So I'm really looking, that stage 19 and 20, those 2 days are going to be great television, great racing. So, Kathy, what stage are you looking forward to?
Well, I am going forward in time, or back in time. I'm going to stage 15, which is the Galibier. And like you, Chris, I didn't do nearly as much technical preparation as Tim did. And the reason I like the Galibier is because I mean, this stage is very much a Tour de France stage, but what I love about it is there's something exciting always happens on the Galibier, whether it's all I can remember is Andy Schleck finally reaching into his suitcase of courage and pulling out the most epic ride of his career, but certainly almost, in sort of living memory, just one of those great legendary rides. If he never does anything again, you'll remember him because of that. And I think that the fact that it's so but let's face it, it's between Wiggins and Nibali, and I think on this stage there's going to be a lot of winnowing out. I think it's going to be a great stage, one of the decisive ones.
Yeah, that's going to be. Yeah, that's really the first time where the GC guys are going to have to show, who has great form.
Yep.
So that will be a great stage. All right, well, let's enough about the parcours. Let's talk about the riders. Yeah, because this is an interesting Giro, and a lot of people are predicting certain people to be there, and we'll talk about that. So Tim, let's start with you. What we'll do is we're going to talk about 3 riders each. I might cheat, but we're going to talk about 3 riders each. We're going to talk about the GC guys, and we're going to talk about other people that will be interesting to watch. So Tim, why don't we start with you? Who do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Bradley Wiggins first, because I know how popular he is around here.
The Peacock.
I think he's.
Well, that's what you could call him, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's. He and Nibali, I think, are very much the favourites going forward, as Kathy says. And it's been interesting this year. He's had a very different build-up to this Giro compared to how he prepared for the Tour de France last year. And last year, he basically bossed every race he was in all the way up to July. But this year, he's raced a fairly light programme. And he's just shown the odd flash of form in the Volta a Catalunya and the Giro del Trentino. Just enough to underline his credentials as one of the big favourites, but not enough really to have that kind of level of confidence that people had in him last year. So, where can we expect him to feature? I think we can expect Sky to be right up there in the Stage 2 team time trial. That's always one of their strengths. Mm-hmm. And then I'd expect him to grab a big chunk of time on the long individual time trial on Stage 8, which will probably give him something reasonable to defend in the mountains. Now, the second time trial on Stage 18 is steep and it is uphill, but he has shown in the past, particularly on the Col d'Ez time trial in Paris-Nice, that he can do climbing time trials. So I'd expect him to be right up there and probably taking reasonable chunks of time out of most people. So, I mean, yeah, if you believe what you read, reportedly he's been working hard on making his climbing more explosive over the winter. So, do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he gains less time than expected in the time trials, but also loses less time than expected in the high mountains. So, I think if he avoids any serious misfortune, it's hard to see him finishing anything other than first or second. The only real question is which position he'll finish in. I think he can win it for sure. If I had to put a number on it, I'd say he has a 40, maybe 50% chance of winning.
Yeah, I think that uphill time trial, I'll bet he wins that, actually. I mean, it's perfect for a guy who loves to ride time trials like he does, looking down at that power meter and a consistent grade. So
yeah, but that's Stage 18.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that he won in Paris-Nice, that was a 1 week stage. So yeah, he can go uphill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Grand Tours are always a lot different, and I think, like Tim said, he'll probably not gain as much time as everybody thinks in the time trials, because they're very different time trials than the ones that he had in the Tour. And yeah, he might lose less than some people might hope.
So,
but
Kathy,
I don't think it's a walkover.
I know you don't fancy Wiggins, so who do you fancy? What rider are you looking at?
Well, he's not in the race, but anyway, the guy I'm going to go for is Nibbles,
Yeah.
Vincenzo Nibali. I've been really impressed with him this year. He's gone to how do we pronounce it now? Bloody hell! Oh, I'm going to say Astana because I can't remember how we're supposed to pronounce it.
Yes, Astana.
Astana, I think, or something. Anyway, as Cherie quite pointed out, you know, they've got Vinokurov now in the tactical kind of strategy thing, and you know, whatever we might think of Vinokurov as a rider, he did know how to ride races. And I've got to say that I think that Nibali in Trentino, you know, Astana, he's getting a team behind him that I think can, you know, are not afraid of Sky and can really take it to Sky. And we're basically doing what Sky was doing for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, last year in the Tour, we saw that they couldn't do anything against Sky. This, I think, is going to be very, very different. First of all, it's Nibali's home race. He's going to want it so bad. And, you know, he's got a new team, and they're a strong team, and they're a smart team. And, you know, and it's going to be a difficult one for Wiggins. It's not going to be a walkover for Wiggins. So I think, you know, Nibali, I'm picking him to win, actually.
All right.
Surprise.
Well, I think that's really interesting. I think it's going to be a battle of trains between Astana and Team Sky, and so it'll be interesting to see. And both those riders are very capable of winning. So, you know, I give him a 50% shot, just like Wiggins. Now, if Wiggins is 50 and Nibali's 50, that doesn't really leave room for anybody else. But I do think that there's one guy that we have to look out for, and that's Ryder Haichedal. He showed in the last Giro that he can ride with the best riders in the world and keep them at bay, including a very fit Joaquim Rodriguez in the last Giro. So, and, you know, he's been preparing for this race, and he showed us at Trentino that he has some really good form that's coming on. It'll be interesting. I think he's going to have to pull a move, though, almost like he did at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, right? That's where he showed form, excuse me, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He's going to have to attack. He can't just, you know, ride the Sky train and hope to kind of be there at the end with these guys. He's going to have to do some move somewhere that kind of surprises everybody. But he is backed up by some pretty strong and experienced riders. He's going to have Van de Velde with him, who in the previous Giro, you know, really helped him chase down Thomas de Gendt, so to speak. I mean, de Gendt won the stage, but, you know, he wasn't the virtual leader at the time when he
yeah, they helped to minimize that.
Yeah, I mean, Van de Velde turned himself inside out to make sure that Ryder, you know, kept the GC there. So you know, he's got him. He's got a really strong time trial team. It'll be interesting to see how Garmin fares in the team time trial against teams like Sky. I mean, he's going to have David Miller and Tom Danielson there. Both him, Van de Velde, and Miller. All of those three of those guys are world-class time trialers. So. We'll see what happens there. So I think he's one that, you know, I can't say that he's a 50% shot, but he's so cool and calm. I mean, you watch the video of him, like, talking about his emotions from the last year's Giro, and it's like nothing phases the guy. And I think he, out of the three of them, Bradley Wiggins and Vincenzo Nibali, I think Haichedal is best prepared to handle pressure. Just because of his nature. So we'll see what happens. All right, Tim. Well, that brings us back to you.
Right. So I think the second rider I'm going to pick is Sammy Sanchez. So I think he's made the Giro his top priority this year. And in some ways, he's a bit of an unknown quantity when it comes to racing in Italy. He's only ever raced the Giro once before, which was in 2005, where he finished 17th. But of course, he's done well in the other two Grand Tours. He's been top 6 3 times at the Tour de France. He's been on the podium twice at the Vuelta. His form's quite difficult to judge. He's not raced very much this year. The only real major races he's done were Tirreno Adriatico and the Tour of the Basque Country. At the latter, he was second on one of the key mountain stages. So, you know, tentatively, his form is probably about where he wants it to be. Now, he'll probably get off to a bad start because, as we all know, the Euskaltel boys are traditionally, how shall I put it, rubbish at team time trials. So he'll definitely lose time there, but probably he will hope to limit his losses to 30 seconds or so. But equally, he will do much more than just hold his own in both individual time trials. Although he probably won't take as much time out of people as Wiggins will. But where he will hopefully be very strong is on the really tough summit finishes, where I think he'll be right up there at the sharp end everywhere that it matters. So, if I were to say, if I were to have to pick one rider who might potentially win the Giro without winning a single stage and winning it purely on consistency, it could well be Sanchez. If I'm being honest, I don't think he has quite enough firepower to win. But a podium place, I think, is pretty realistic.
Interesting. All right, Kathy, who's your next pick?
Well, I've been thinking about this, and I actually think that there might be somebody on the podium that nobody has mentioned and nobody knows about, because I think, everybody's going to be watching Wiggins and Nibali, and then they're going to have one eye on Hajidel. The sprinters are going to be doing their thing, this, that, and the other. And I just think there's going to be somebody, not of a Ricardo Rico kind of way, but just somebody who maybe is doing better in the time trials than you'd expect, but they still don't see him as a threat, and then he could go off. I just think there's somebody there, kind of like Hajidel last year. It just all of a sudden, hey, my God, he's in contention.
Yeah.
I don't know who that person is, but I'm just backing the it's going to be a dark horse, and somebody's going to throw the spanner in the works.
All right. So because you didn't name a name, I'm actually going to steal one of your names. But we'll have an unnamed rider, and I'm going to save it for my third pick, because I have two guys for my third pick. But anyway, let me talk. Let me talk about my second pick.
You're cheating. You're cheating.
Which is Robert Gesink from Team Blanco.
No, he's not going to do anything. He never does anything.
Well, that's not true. It's not that he never does anything. I mean, he won the Tour of California last year, right? He was 5th in the Tour de France before. But he's cursed. He's had a lot of bad luck. He is the Geraint Thomas of GC contenders. And so I think he's, from what I've read and what I've watched, it sounds like this race is a race that he's really prepared for. And so he could be that guy that you're talking about. He could be that dark horse that I don't think he's on nobody's radar. But I think when you think about this race, you think about the three that we've talked about before, right? You think about Nibali and Wiggins and Hajidel. But Gesink could be one of those guys who surprises. He's not a bad time trialer. And so we'll see if Blanco's not a bad time trialing team either. So it'll be interesting to see if he can hang in there and maybe even be almost like a Samuel Sanchez, where he's there at the pointy end of the spear and then he makes something happen by surprise. So, okay, Tim. So those are our GC guys. We have Bradley Wiggins, Samu, Vincenzo Nibali, someone else, Ryder Hajidel, and Robert Gesink. Those are our GC picks. All right. So, Tim, obviously there's some sprinter who you like, who's coming to the Giro.
Man crush alert.
Hang on a minute. Now, Kathy, are you sure that your someone else isn't Ilio Kaiser?
He'll be at the Giro. He will be there.
Do you know what? If he wins, you guys owe me big time, because it would be like, God, so prophetic. So prophetic.
I'll take that bet. Yeah, it's like any other Grand Tour, the Giro it's primarily around the GC, and it's focused on the big climbing stages. But there are lots of races within the race, so if I'm being truthful, this is quite a long way from being the strongest Grand Tour sprint field we'll ever see. So I've kind of got 1.5 choices here, because if I'm being honest, I think there's only really 2 sprinters worth watching. Now, watch as that prediction goes spectacularly wrong. But I want to focus on Mark Cavendish and John Degenkolb. If we talk about Cav, it's not been the smoothest start to his career at Omega Pharma Quickstep. He blitzed the Tour of Qatar back in February. He won 4 stages. He won the overall. But since then, it's been a bumpy ride with a lead-out train which, let's be honest, has been conspicuous by its absence in the final kilometre of far too many races this year.
Yeah.
Now he's coming to the Giro with a much changed team. He's their sole focus, but I do think it's going to take them a little bit of time to gel. And I think what we might see is Cav spending most of the first week looking to latch onto other people's trains. He's raced the Giro 4 times before. He's never won fewer than 2 stages. He has 10 individual wins overall. So I'll be surprised if he doesn't win at least 1 or 2, but I think he might struggle in the first week, and he will definitely have his hands full against Argos Shimano's very powerful lead-out train, which they'll be focusing on his former HTC High Road teammate John Degenkolb. He's had a fairly quiet and not overly successful start to the season. He was 9th at the Tour of Flanders. But it looks like he's starting to come into a little bit of form. But Argos Shimano we can expect to see those white jerseys up at the front on the flat stages an awful lot. And I think so in both cases with both Cav and Degenkolb, look out for both of them at the front of the peloton on horizontal days, and look at them to be at the back of the peloton on vertical days. And do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if either or both of them abandoned before the final trio of high mountain stages, 18 to 20. I think for both of them, stage wins are their priority, not the points jersey. But I'll be very surprised if between the two of them they don't dominate the sprint stages.
Yeah. All right. Well, that leads us to you then, Kathy.
Well, I was the only one playing by the rules, and I had 1. However, I'm going to go 2 because that's what you guys seem to be doing. Flouting the rules, going rogue. Right. My 2 are that boy Finney, of course, because he last year he really made the Tour or the Giro when it first started out by being in pink and Giro love story and and all that stuff. And I just think he just kind of blazed onto the scene, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do in this Giro, because he loves Italy, he loves the Giro. He even said I think on Twitter just a little bit ago that he's wearing pink jeans already. So he's absolutely ready for this, and I just think he's just gonna enliven everything about the Giro. The other one that I want to have a close look at is Marco Panache, who has just come back from that really bad crash, and he's been doing well was he in Trentino? One of the races, the last couple of races, he seems to be finding his way back, and the reason I really like him is he just seems like one good guy. He's just an honorable, he's got integrity. He just seems, everybody who's ever met him says he's, one of the, most gracious, lovely men. And I just think, I really want this nice guy to finish first in one of the time trials or, to win a stage. I just think he's great.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that he's been named to their Giro roster yet.
Okay, so, there you go.
But if it would be interesting to see him, especially in he's a great time trialer, so he'd be great for their team time trial, and he'd probably do well even in that mountain time trial. So I think we're still unsure whether or not he's going to go to the Tour, but who doesn't like Marco Panache? The guy, he's just a stalwart individual. All right, well, I was going to pick, Tim, you said that there were only 2 sprinters worth talking about. I think there's actually a third, and that's Nasser Bouhanni, but I'm not going to talk about him. I want to really...
You're going to talk about 4 other people.
I really want to look at 2 guys, actually, and that is Rigoberto Urán and Sergio Henao. And we've talked all year about SkyTrains and how these guys deserve to be leaders on their own. Well, this is the chance for those 2 guys to really prove if they have what it takes to be at the pointy end of the spear on a 3-week Grand Tour stage. And so it'll be interesting to see if, in that stage 19 and 20 that we talked about, if those guys are the protagonist and the, leading Wiggins up and shelling everybody like they have all year. If that is the case, if those guys are basically in the top 10 on GC, coming into the final week and they're basically dragging their leader up the road, then I will say that Sky really has to figure something out, because there's no way they'll be able to keep all those guys next year. So for me, that's just the team dynamics of Sky, and whether these two Colombians have what it takes to be there at the end of the 3 weeks. I'm really interested to watch that. So, all right, Tim. Anybody else that we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I guess there's a few names that are worth mentioning. I think if you're looking for the winner, then it's hard to look beyond the top three of Wiggins, Nibali, and Hajjdal. Uran and Henao are both interesting bets, because of course both raced the Giro last year and both finished in the top 10. So they can come into this race with a degree of confidence. I guess the question will be how much they burn themselves up looking after Wiggins in the meantime. But should some misfortune befall Wiggo, then there's every chance that either of those two could take over and produce certainly a top 5 finish. But I guess beyond that, I think there's a couple of other former Giro winners for us to look at, who are probably worth a look at as an outside bet. Of course, there's Ivan Basso, who is probably past his best now, but he's a winner from 2006 and 2010, and then winner the following year in 2011. Of course, Michele Scarponi, who again has shown little flashes of form. Can he win? Probably not. Can he get on the podium? There's a good chance of that. Hessink we mentioned. Cadel Evans, of course. Yep. There's the big question mark about, is he racing to get into shape for the Tour? Is he actually trying to compete in the Giro? Depending on who you read, it's one thing or the other. But he's a tough competitor, and if he gets a sniff of a high finish, then you can be sure he'll go for it. Beyond that, I've got, I think, a couple of really interesting long shots. Mauro Sant'Ambrogio. From Vini Fantini, who's in excellent form. He was second at Trentino, I think, a couple of weeks ago. Movistar aren't coming with their A team really, but they'll be led by Beñat Incausti, who again, very good climbers, performed well in certainly at the Vuelta before. And if you're looking for something a little bit more in terms of a home option, there's Franco Pellizotti, who's a slightly controversial name from the past. He's racing for Androni Giocattoli Venezuela, and I'll come back to them in a little bit more detail in a bit. But I think that if you're a betting person, then probably the best places to look are beyond bets for the win and looking at each way places. Yeah.
All right. Well, because we love an underdog, we've been looking at some of these wildcard teams that have been invited to the Giro, and they're Italian domestic teams. And Tim, you just mentioned one of them, which is Androni. Tell us a little bit about that team.
Yeah. So, anyone remember Rock Racing?
Yeah.
Oh God.
They like to think of themselves as a home for rehabilitating former bad boys, didn't they? Well, this year's Androni squad are kind of the Italian equivalent of that, with the team featuring current Italian national champion Franco Pellizotti and also Emanuele Sella. Now, Sella, he is a climbing specialist. He was disqualified after finishing 6th at the 2008 Giro, in which he won 3 stages. And I think he was one of the first riders to get busted for Sierra. But if you go further back in the distant past, he's finished 10th and 12th. He was floating around near the front on the climbs at the Giro del Trentino without ever looking particularly threatening. But he's got a solid enough pedigree as a climber. Pellizotti, he was a bit of a pioneer as well. He was one of the first victims to be busted by the biopassport. He got himself banned in 2010, I think it was, for irregular blood values.
He was also hair doping back then.
He was indeed. As a result of that ban, he lost his results from 2009, during which time he finished 3rd at the Giro, and he was also the king of the mountains at the Tour. So again, this is a guy who can climb. How well he can climb clean is something else. Now, Pellizotti he's actually quite short odds with the bookies, and so he's a reasonable look as an outside bet for the GC. But I think more likely, in both his case and Sella's, either of them could sneak away and try to steal a stage win in the mountains, which is exactly what their Colombian teammates Miguel Angel Rubiano did on a medium mountain stage last year, stage 6 or 7, I think it was. No, I mean, yeah. those three are the three most notable names on a team that's basically packed full of climbers. It's got 6 Italians, 2 Venezuelans, and Rubiano, who's Colombian. They're a wild card team, so no doubt we'll see them getting a lot of men into lots of breakaways to give their sponsors as much airtime as possible. So keep a lookout for. We'll get used to seeing their red trimmed white jerseys a lot in the first week in particular. But I'd expect them to put in their big efforts in the mountains in the second and third weeks, where maybe they can sneak a stage win.
Yeah, and they always have the most logos on their kit. Like that kit is like wallpaper of logos. It's pretty interesting. All right, well, I'm looking at Bardiani Valvole CSF Inox, which last year was, I just called them Colnago because they were the Colnago squad, and I could pronounce that. I'm really disappointed that they changed their name and got a new sponsor, but yes, they were the Colnago CSF squad last year, and I have no idea what these guys are coming here to do except for basically try to get exposure. I think we'll see them a lot in the breaks. I mean, they only have 2 riders that I'm even familiar with, and one is Sasha Modolo, who's a very good sprinter. But I don't think that they have the firepower to compete with the sprint chain of Argos and Quick Step. So, and then they also have this Stefano Perazzi, who's a very good climber, and I think we'll see him trying to get into breaks and maybe also trying to be one of these stage hunters that goes out and tries to claim some of these stages that have little lumpy finishes. They're all Italian. They're all young. So who knows? I mean, we could see a superstar come out of this group, but I think they're really trying to race the Giro to allow people to get exposure to who they are and just go stage hunting. So, and then, of course, we have Kathy's team, the Glow Sticks.
Yay! Yes. They are now known as Vini Fantini Sella Italia, but we all know them as the Glows because they have that just incredibly fluorescent kit that I love so well, which really pops in the rain, I've got to say. And I love the Glow Sticks. They have on their team former overall winners like Danilo De Luca. God knows how he keeps racing. And Stefano Garzelli.
Yeah.
But, they're kind of the old men of the squad. I think they're probably there just for some experience. And it looks like, I think that they're just going to go for maybe breakaway stage wins or something. They've got Mauro Sant'Ambrogio. Oh, I can't say these names.
Sant'Ambrogio.
Yeah, him.
He's a very good climber.
He could really do something actually. And then they've got some sprint guys, including Francesco Kiki, and he's just come off the Tour of Turkey, and Oscar Gatto. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, they're just gonna glow, and it's just gonna be great.
All right, so those are our domestic squads. We've seen a lot of Vini Fantini. I mean, Kiki, we see a lot. We've seen Gatto, all over the place. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys fare against all the Pro Tour teams. All right. Well, we are really looking forward to these next 3 weeks, and make sure you go to VeloVoices.com because we're going to be doing previews for every stage reviews for every stage. We're just going to have so much content around the Giro, and we will be posting every day, maybe multiple times a day, so make sure you go check that out. All right, let's go now for our sprint finish. And we have 3 questions, and Tim, I'm going to ask you the first one. This is from William Kejanye, and his off of Twitter. His Twitter handle is @KeeJayOV. Okay, this is his question. Obvious, but anyone barring Ryder who's been limp after a promising Liège-Bastogne-Liège, is anybody capable of challenging the top 2?
Yeah, I guess we've sort of covered this to an extent already. It's funny, actually. I'm actually okay about Ryder's form. I think he took things easy at the Tour de Romandie, and he showed enough with that little burst he put in at Liège to convince me that he's in pretty decent shape. But yeah, I think outside of that, obviously I've been looking to to someone like Sammy Sanchez as the man most likely to cause an upset. But as I said, yeah, and Kitty's just mentioned him. If you want a good long shot as someone who could just sneak in from the outside and cause a bit of an upset, I would certainly have a look at Mauro Sant'Ambrogio. I think he is a great climber. He's a good all-rounder. He's in terrific form at the moment, and he could just be one of those people that springs a surprise, gets 5 minutes up the road, and all of a sudden he's a serious contender.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you ask the next question?
Right. Okay. I guess let's direct this one at Kathy. It's a question that came to us from Facebook from John Curtis. Which is the better jersey? Is it pink, yellow, or whatever colour the Vuelta jersey happens to be at the moment?
Oh, well, you can take that question in a number of ways, I believe. For me, the better jumper, or the better jersey, is, I think the Maglia Rosa is the prettiest one, and is the coolest looking one. But I think what, it's got to be the Maillot Jaune, the yellow jersey from the Tour de France, is the most valuable to a rider, whether they win a stage or are just in the jersey for a day, or if they win it at the end. It's the one that everybody in the world recognizes. So from that point of view, it would have to be the Tour de France jersey, and then I think it would be the Giro d'Italia jersey. And then it would be the Vuelta, which is red.
Yeah.
So.
All right, which leaves one question.
Which I will ask for you.
All right.
How, again, from John Curtis, who, by the way, before I forget, I want to say hello to his little son, Isaac. Hi, Isaac. Anyway, he's my little sweetheart. Right, so John has asked, how much criticism will there be of the Team SkyTrain over the coming weeks? And will it be justified?
Will it be justified? I don't think there'll be any criticism if they do what they've done all year, which is basically ride the rest of the peloton off the back. But I think we're going to see an Astana train that is on par with them. So if they can beat the Astana train, it'll be all glory, and if they can't, it'll be all criticism. So I think those two riders that we talked about before, Henao and Rigoberto Urán, are the two riders that really the pressure is on to really make sure that Wiggins is at the front where he needs to be on these mountain stages. All right. Well, let's see. Who won the sprint finish today? I think, Kathy, you win it because you took the question two different ways.
Oh, thank you.
Right? You had best design and most prestigious, so that's a good answer. Though I do like the Maillot Jaune's design this year. It has a little collar on it, so I'm looking forward to seeing that on a rider.
Oh. Very right. Eric Cantona.
Well, that is it for us. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at VeloVoices. Make sure you follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/VeloVoices. And of course, make sure you visit the newly designed VeloVoices.com for all of our blog postings and banter. Good night from Virginia. Tim and Kitty, have a great night, and I can't wait to talk to you mid-Giro.
Excellent. Bye.
Bye.
VeloVoices. Many voices. One passion. Pro cycling. For fans. By fans.